昨日までは移籍関連ニュースでも外選手がどこに行くかの議論が多かったですが、今日からは各番組で金額の妥当性について話している番組が急に増えましたね。FA となっているサンタンダー選手、テオスカー・ヘルナンデス選手、マチャド選手らと比較して、外選手がなぜ6億ドルを上回るのか議論をしていました。各チームの移籍情報を今日も翻訳してお届けいたします。このチャンネルでは日本人メジャーリーガーの話題を中心に気になるメジャーリーグのニュースを翻訳してお届けいたします。お見逃しのないよう今のうちにチャンネル登録をお願いいたします。
Good year for Teoscar Hernandez. John Morosi, our own John Morosi, putting this out earlier today. Teoscar Hernandez drawing interest Red Sox and Orioles. Other clubs involved, Baltimore, Boston have similar needs for right-handed power. He did deliver that last year. I'm looking at his StatCast stats just to see where he comes out because I know he has good he's 94th percentile, Dan, in barrel percentage. Obviously, this year hit over 30 home runs, slugged over 500. There was 501 for the Dodgers in a neutral hitting park. The OPS plus 100 being league average 137. So it's a serious year. He had very good at bats in the playoffs. So he looks like a guy, Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, that can hit good pitching, has good presence out there.
You know, Brian, I would term him this, 2 words, winning player. He fit into a winning organization with the Dodgers. There was some concern coming out of spring training. There can be at times a lot of swing and miss that comes part of his game, but he cleaned some things up with his swing mechanically, and he's a solid player. He's going to get a lot of interest.
Yeah, he's going to be 32. This is his best full season. You know, so I'm wondering. We're not looking at long-term deal here, right? Are we looking at over 8 figures? Are we looking at that?
He's going to get a good deal. I know his age 32, but if you look at him, his body, he plays like he's younger.
Okay. Back here on MLB Tonight, and the Los Angeles Angels signing Kyle Hendricks to a 1-year deal worth $2.5 million. Modest deal. 11 years for Hendricks, part, of course, that legendary Cubs World Series championship team back in 2015. Or was that 2016? 16, thanks, Dan. In 2016, by the way, he had a 2.13 ERA, led the league 190 innings. Now, last year was a different story, a 5.92 ERA over 130 innings. And this is at Plesac 19. I always say at Plesac 19 in honor of Greg Amsinger. Kudos to the Angels taking a flyer on Kyle Hendricks. Tons of respect for what he's done. Doesn't chase velo or spin. It's a pitcher, not a thrower. Because this has been put out there, Dan. It's like that he was beat up. He was beat up out there last year. And people wonder, what are the Angels doing? What do you think the Angels are doing?
Okay, he had surgery on his shoulder in May of 2023. So to expect a guy at that age, he's going to bounce back. It's not Tommy John. When you have some issues with your shoulder, it's an issue, Brian. The guy takes the ball every 5 days. And I know you can look at the numbers, and the numbers say bad. The numbers say the walks, the strikeouts. It all doesn't add up. His last start of the year, and I get it, small sample size, his last start of the year was arguably his best start of the year. I won't give up on this guy until he gives up on himself. And if you value a guy that has smarts, a guy that has brains, a guy that tries to figure out a way, that's willing to make changes, you take a look at this graphic and all of it screams like, boy, I don't know. I do know this. If there's anybody out there that throws less than 90, that can figure out a way to manage their way through a game, Brian, sooner or later, the 30 teams in baseball have to stop their starting rotation, getting a bunch of guys that throw hard. I call them dead brain heavers. Just grab it and throw it, spin it, and rip it. Mm-hmm. If that's what you like, and I get it. You like the radar gun. You like what it says. You like seeing swing and miss. You have too many guys like that on your team, a couple of things happen. One, you don't get many innings. You burn out your bullpen. You have no reliability. If you ask really privately any manager, what is the most important thing you want out of a pitcher? The first thing they'll say is trust. I want to know that I'm going to give him the ball every 5 days and he can manage a game. I don't care about 2 innings of 6 strikeouts. The issue I have now today is a lot of the younger pitchers equate 5 innings, 4 runs, 1 walk, and 9 strikeouts, and that's a good outing. It's not a good outing.
Right.
It is not a good outing. It has never been a good outing. We need to, if you're, I'm big on this. I watch your show all the time. Somehow, some way, you have to fill out a rotation that eats up so many innings.
Right, sure.
Because if you have a bullpen that is good, it will not be good at the end of the year because you will run through that bullpen and eat them alive.
Angels had, I thought they had real promise last year, building around a core of Logan O'Hoppe, Zach Neto, that sort of thing. Ron Washington's first year. They ended up with 99 losses. It got away from them late. They need to do a lot more. I guess they've been busy so far in the offseason.
Listen, they don't expect. They'd like to have Kyle Hendricks of 2016. That's probably not the guy that's going to show up. One year, the Angels did nothing but draft pitchers. Every draft selection was a pitcher. Right? And it goes to show you how fickle this business is. But somehow, some way, you have to find innings. And I'm not saying that Kyle Hendricks is going to have a great year. I hope that he does, because I still think there's a place in baseball for a guy that doesn't throw 95 and spin the ball, move the ball up, down, in and out. Is it harder? Yes, but it can be done.
So we'll start with an elite team, the American League champion Yankees, exercising their 2025 option on Aaron Boone. There's the official post from the Yankees. They pick up their club option. No extension, but the option is picked up, and that was somewhat in question, at least in other quarters. I don't know if it was in question ever with the Yankees themselves. 7 years with the Bronx Bombers, an American League East title, an American League pennant. Normally there'd be no story here, but the Yankees' exit in the World Series was quite loud. Their lack of fundamental baseball-y skill, as we call it, coming out consistently and eventually ending their season. But here's the record under Boone. He had those fantastic years in 2018, 2019, over 100 wins, 94 wins this past season. His overall winning percentage is .584. But Dan, again, there was questions about the way they went out in the World Series and the way they were just outperformed on the field in a very baseball sense by the Dodgers.
First of all, he's a very good manager in a very difficult town to manage in. But with that said, I think when you fly over and you look at what happened in the postseason, I think a few things have to change. And I think some of the Dodgers players have even talked about this since the World Series have been over. The Yankees a little lackadaisical on the bases, a little lackadaisical taking care of the baseball. And, Brian, we talked about this before the show started. The Dodgers beat the Yankees on all the small margins, the base running, the defense, hitting the cutoff man, going out, getting a throw, all the things that winning teams do. There's a lot to the Yankees. They hit home runs. They have some big-time players. They didn't do a good job taking care of the ball, and they didn't do a very good job running the bases. I'm sure that's going to be addressed when they get to spring training in February.
Boone has also changed quite a bit in his managing, strategizing as far as using the bullpen. He's very aggressive using the bullpen. Of course, this year, then he also has Nestor Cortez coming out and giving off a walk-off grand slam. I wonder if there were questions. The Yankees are very stable, Dan, right? And so I wonder if there were any questions in ownership or then even in executive circles about, is it time for a change? Even if you think Boone has been successful, there have been moves like that have been a little louder than others.
There have been, but I say this, when we brought that first graphic up, he's won in a very tough market. But I will say this. I think there's going to have to be some fundamental changes when they get to spring training, paying a little bit more attention to detail on the backfields, on cutoffs, relays. You can make it, listen, the Garrett Cole, the ground ball to Anthony Rizzo, nobody covering first base. Those are small little things. But the Dodgers won that series, Brian. Granted, big home run in game one, the grand slam by Freddie Freeman. But they won all the margins. They took care of the ball. They hit the cutoff man. They ran the bases very well. They did something that exposed the Yankees. They took it to the Yankees by hustle plays. You call them baseball-y plays. They won all of those plays.
Right. It was a bad look to end the season, yet we're aware there's a lot of success there. You win a division, you win the pennant, you take out the Royals, you take out Cleveland. That's not an easy job either. They look very good doing that. But there were questions. I think there'll be a lot more pressure on the Yankees in the coming season. But Aaron Boone is back. Other Yankee news, according to our own John Heyman, Hal Steinbrenner will meet with Juan Soto in the next week and a half. We'd already heard that Steve Cohen of the Mets, owner of the Mets, will be meeting with Soto within the week. So the two New York teams are definitely in, Dan. And look, as far as the Yankee experiment, that was a wild success.
It really was. He was everything that the Yankees needed. Now, if you want to dive into it and be a little bit critical of it, some things, though, about his game were exposed when it got into the postseason.
Right, yeah.
Defender, he's a average to a below average defender. Thrower, he's an average to below average thrower. Base running, I'd say he's an average base runner. There's no question what he brings when he stands in that batter's box.
Right.
He makes every lineup better. He made this Yankee lineup better. I look at it this way, Brian. I know there are several teams that say we're going to be in on Juan Soto. But I think being realistic, it's going to be the Mets, it's going to be the Yankees, possibly the Blue Jays, possibly the Giants. I can't see any of the other teams. The Dodgers are committed to Ohtani. They're committed to Yamamoto. They're committed to Glasnow, to Freddie Freeman, to Mookie Betts. Maybe some way they can make that work, but I don't think the market for Juan Soto is as robust. Like there are going to be several teams. I think they're going to be 4.
His price tag is already so high. I know on Fangraphs crowdsourcing, it's up near $600 million. And I'm just wondering, because he's going to be age 26 coming into this year. Same age as Manny Machado, same age as Bryce Harper. Those two got about $300 million. Is he going to get 600? Like, how do you jump, even if he's a better hitter than both of those guys, and maybe marginally better than Bryce Harper, and not the fielder, clearly, that Manny Machado is. But still, how do you get from 300 to 600 then in that player? That's what, I don't think the market has changed that much.
I'll make you a little gentleman's bet. When we cover spring training, we do the 30 clubs in 15 days. And if you and I are working together in either Florida or Arizona, if it doesn't start with a 6, dinner's on me the entire spring training.
Oh, so it's going.
I think he's going north of 6.
Really?
Yeah, I do.
Wow.
I do.
It's going to be a good dinner then with Hal Steinbrenner and Yankee owner and Steve Cohen. Dinner's on them.
Yeah, that's right.
That's true at the very start. More Yankee news. This coming out as well. John Rossi putting out that the Yankees do have interest among the many free agent relievers out there. Carlos Estevez. He was with Philadelphia and also the Angels. 2.45 ERA. 50 strikeouts in 55 innings, only 12 walks. Very reliable. Age 32 season, Dan, he's just kind of emerged. Your thoughts as a great reliever yourself on Estevez?
I think he has proven he can handle the 9th inning. And listen, there was nobody higher on Luke Weaver than I was the last 3 weeks of the regular season and into the postseason. But the back of the baseball card suggests that Luke Weaver's bounced around a little while. And I think if you're the Yankees, you're looking for a little bit of an insurance policy. Look what happened to the Yankees bullpen in July and August. They put all their eggs in the basket of Clay Holmes. That basket got tipped upside down. Fortunately, they had Luke Weaver as plan B, and he stepped up and settled down an entire bullpen. I don't know if you're going to see Clay Holmes back. He's a free agent back in a Yankee uniform. But if you look at that bullpen, the way it's constructed right now, it's not as strong right now as it was at the beginning of the season. And I think what Brian Cashman's going to do, he's going to look and say, okay, we love Luke Weaver, but we needed insurance policy. We'd be better off having a guy that's proven he can handle 9th inning. Give Luke Weaver, you're into that high leverage thing, a guy that can get outs in the 7th and the 8th inning, because those outs are just as important. You never have enough ammunition in the bullpen.
See, right. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Brian Cashman, I thought, did his finest work in develop. Like he's got the aircraft carriers all around, including at Soto and Judge. But that bullpen was just put together piecemeal, and it emerged beautifully, and it was outstanding. But life gets easier when you have an established guy working and roaming the 8th and 9th inning.
It does. And you've convinced me this 4 years ago. I was kind of, I guess, old school, old fashioned, built on. Show me on paper on February 1st why you look like your bullpen. And the Rays did one thing. They could demonstrate year after year that bullpens are mercurial, right? 1 year they're good, 1 year they're bad. And you can go on a fly. You can make a bullpen. There's so many. There are abundance of arms out there right now in AAA and AA that throw 95 plus. You're looking for a guy to strike lightning in a bottle. We see it with every team across the board. Every team is throwing out 4 or 5 of the 7 guys that are 95 to 97 plus with power arms.
You can put together quite a pen on the fly as you go. Look what A.J. Preller did with the Padres. Look what Brian Cashman did with the Yankees. And they were monstrous. And obviously Cleveland, monstrous bullpens going into the playoffs. All right, those are some great highlights. I might be a little more tempered than that looking at this group. Free agency season is here. I've mentioned before, it's not especially deep, and certain players will command most of the attention. Last night, we went over the top tier of the starting pitcher market. Tonight, we take a quick overview at the free agent talent pool at first base. Let's do a little digging in. First base is where you get power, but it's also traditionally the free agent trap, paying for those power numbers for a slugger who often, not always, but often, does not age well and then clogs up your first base and your DH spot. This year, we have just that kind of player. Pete Alonso leads the class at first base. Over the last 6 years, he is first at the position in home runs, second in total bases, fourth in OPS plus. He posts up, he hits for power, but he is going into his age 30 season. He's not a good defender or base runner. And how much power is he actually getting for you? I want to be fair here. Here are Pete Alonso's numbers for the last 4 seasons, full seasons. He hits .248, the batting average, .336 on base. Slugging percentage is just under .500. You expect .500 slugging from your first baseman. It's .499. Slash line is good, It's not great. The OPS plus 100 is league average, is 131. Now that's 6th among first basemen in that span. The selling point, though, is this. Alonso played all 162 this year, every game. He delivers production. He averaged 291 total bases a year in this span. 291. So he slugs around 500, gets around 300 total bases. That is real production. So just realize where he is. This is runs created among first basemen the last 3 years. The elite is Freddie Freeman, Matt Olson, Vlad Guerrero Jr., and Paul Goldschmidt, who is great and has dropped off. We'll get to him. Then there's Alonso, and then there's the rest. He is the level between the elite and then Christian Walker, Nathaniel Lowe, Josh Bell, among others. So not quite in the superstar class, but he's 5th overall and above the class of non-sluggers. So he's in the middle. He's a tough case. We'll discuss with Dan Plesac in a moment. It's almost a simple case for Christian Walker. Walker is older. He's going into his age 34 season. He's not quite an upper echelon slugger, but over the last 3 years, he's slugged a respectable 481. He's hitting in a good hitter's park, but he is slugging. The big selling point is that Walker is the premier fielder now at this position. He was +7 or +10 in the major defensive metrics this year. Over the last 6 years, he is far and away the highest outs above average at first base. I think a way of looking at Walker is to compare him directly to Alonso. So let's just take the last 3 years, not 4 as we did before, 3. This is more fair to Walker, by the way. But the average in on base, let me see, 250, 243. It's about the same, 332, 333, about the same. Slugging, all right, Alonso's a little better, a 493 to a 481. Total bases, once again, 291. That's a big number. 264 for Walker. But the average WAR, again, Walker with the edge in fielding and running. He's not a great runner, but he's a great fielder. He averages a 3.8 wins above replacement to a 3.4 for Alonso. WAR is an approximation. We're not getting crazy about that. Walker is 4 years older. But the overall production and the value is a little more similar than you might think. This brings us to the third player in the top tier. This is much more volatile now. Paul Goldschmidt has had a fantastic career. He was an all-around star. He slugged, he fielded, he was an excellent base runner. He's not a league average, he's now a league average fielder and a base runner. He was once great, now he's league average. Last year, in his age 36 season, his offense cratered. Here's Goldschmidt the last 3 seasons. In 2022, he's an MVP. 404 on base, 578 slugging. The OPS plus, he leads the league. And from there, the numbers fall. 2023, respectable, 363 on base, a little bit of power. Last year, though, he falls below league average. Now, look to the far right there. That's ex-WOBA, expected weighted on base. It also falls, though not as much as you might think. He has some positive StatCast contact numbers, but Goldschmidt's strikeout rate has risen each of the last 2 years. His walk rate was nearly cut in half last year. He's clearly an aging player, but he's dipped before and he's come back. Someone will bet on him, and someone might really benefit. This was a highly skilled all-around player. All right, let's get to the best of the rest on the market, though. Justin Turner is going to be 40, but he had a 114 OPS plus for the Mariners. Donovan Solano had a good year with the Padres, only 309 plate appearances, also played third base for them. He's going to be age 37 next year. Carlos Santana is going to be 39, but he had a 109 OPS plus last year. Josh Bell, a bit younger, about league average, but a good stretch run for Arizona. Ty France, Anthony Rizzo, not off their best years. And as we get to Dan Plesac, look at the ages of the players there that we're talking about. This is a very different talent pool than that first two. And it does center the attention on that first tier with Pete Alonso and Christian Walker. So, Dan, your overall thoughts. Again, looking at that, I think there's 2 separate markets. Do you want to do a 1 or a 2 year deal for one of those guys? Do you take a chance on Goldschmidt, or do you go top tier?
I'll tell you what, just listening to this entire essay, it made me realize one thing. How great of a player Freddie Freeman is. A guy that could do everything.
Oh, yeah.
That could knock in runs, that plays defense, that could do so many different things. The bottom line I look at is this, Brian. In a day and age where swing and miss and hitting out of the ballpark is at a premium, I think that the industry has looked a little the other way when it comes to defense, when it comes to running the bases. Can you hit the ball in the ballpark, and can you drive runs in? And I think that's what's going to help Alonso, and I think that's what's helping Christian Walker. What helps Walker is the fact that he's as good a defensive first baseman as there is in baseball. He looks the part. He's agile. He can move. when he's healthy, he has a tight, compact swing. He has power to all fields. So I think if you were going to hedge your bet on, hey, who would be a safer bet short term? Probably Walker,
right?
Though he's a couple years older than Pete Alonso. So I don't think the perfect first baseman is necessarily out there right now. That perfect first baseman is wearing a Dodgers uniform. So I think you kind of have to pick and choose if you're an organization. What do you value? Do you value the home run? Do you devalue, hey, I don't worry so much about the batting average? If that's the case, then Pete Alonso is your guy, because you can just about pencil him in between 30 and 35 home runs a year and 80 to 100 runs batted in. Those kind of guys don't grow on trees, and that's why there's going to be a big market for him.
See, that's why I thought the market would be robust for him, even right where he is, because he's a homegrown Met. That is an advantage. And he delivers the production. There's so much to like. As long as you go in knowing he's not slugging 600. You know, he's not Goldschmidt in his prime. He's not that guy.
The issue for the Mets, as I see it from the outside looking in, they have a guy in Vientos that's played third base. He struggled at third base. They think that eventually he's going to hit for power. Outside of Lindor, he was their best offensive threat in the postseason. I see the Mets saying, hey, if they can't get something that works for them financially, then maybe they take Vientos, they move him to first base, and they move on somewhere else.
Right. They might. He's a beloved Met. That's going to hurt.
And JP Morosi home from the GM meetings and doesn't enjoy time off, do you? Right back to it. Good morning, my friend. I need updates on key free agents, and you got him. First on the list, Willie Adams. And we were talking about this, I think, yesterday, that he is open to switching positions. Is that the case? Good morning and welcome home.
Lauren, good morning. Thank you very much. I don't think it will be necessary for Adames to switch positions because there is sufficient interest in him as a shortstop. Here's what I mean by that. Let's take the Los Angeles Dodgers, for example. If Mookie Betts moves back to the infield, which is their plan, the infield for Mookie could be second base. And if the Dodgers were to sign Adames, he's the shortstop, and in that situation, perhaps Gavin Lux is traded. I also look at a team like the San Francisco Giants as having interest in Willie Adams. The Atlanta Braves are a fit for Adames. Even the Boston Red Sox, depending on what Trevor Story's status is. Story has missed so much time that perhaps if they were to trade Marcelo Meyer in a deal to get pitching like a Garrett Crochet, for example, then there's a gap at shortstop for the long term. Maybe you go Adames at short and play Story elsewhere. The bottom line, Lauren, is that Adames is one of the most coveted free agent position players out there, and notably, in a lot of ways, his market does not overlap with Juan Soto's, so we could see him sign before Juan Soto does.
It doesn't have to wait till after, so staying put will work for him. It's an interesting point. We've talked about how the Orioles and the Red Sox are interested in Teoscar Hernandez. That can't be all, JP. In terms of one-year off-season deals, he had to be near the top, yes?
Well, Lauren, I think that what Teoscar signed last year with the Dodgers was an excellent move by his agent and by Teoscar himself, because it allowed him now to reestablish his market value coming off of a year in which maybe he didn't have the best production in Seattle. So then he's able to go out on the open market and become now the player who can sign at least a 3-year deal, maybe a 4-year deal in the range of 24, 25, maybe $26 million a season, because we saw with how he produced for the Dodgers and also how he handled himself in the clubhouse and on the field, what an essential member of the Dodgers he became. So certainly going back to LA is very much a possibility, but if he doesn't, those two teams I mentioned yesterday, the Red Sox and the Orioles, they need proven players who are legit right-handed power bats. Teoscar Hernandez is all of those things.
I loved the way Dave Roberts spoke about him, JP, a deep appreciation for his talent. Harold, I know you watch his show. He just did a split screen of Juan Soto and Anthony Santander. 44 home runs, made himself a whole lot of cash. Who's going to give it to him?
Well, Lauren, it's a great question, and I think that he is Santander, maybe in contrast to what I talked about a moment ago with Adames or even Hernandez. Santander's market, I do believe, links up a bit with Soto's, in that if you imagine the Yankees not signing Juan Soto, then perhaps they pivot to a combination of Santander, Christian Walker, maybe in that situation, perhaps even a Willie Adams. If I'm Anthony Santander, I do wait to see how the Soto market unfolds. And there's actually one team, Lauren, that is maybe not necessarily as closely linked to Juan Soto now, who I do believe is a Santander suitor, and that's the Washington Nationals. Because the Nationals are a young team. You look at what they've got with Dylan Cruz, James Wood. There's a lot of excitement now with the Washington Nationals. And if they're able to get a veteran bat like Anthony Santander, I think their path back to the postseason becomes a lot shorter and more direct.
Don't fire me up, JP. Don't you threaten me with a good time.
Listen,
You hear
Lauren,
me?
I am very aware that when I talk about the Nationals, that your mom is watching
My
very
mom's
carefully.
watching. She's
So
so
I gotta
upset
make
at Trey
sure-
Turner still.
I'm
Mom.
not gonna lead her astray. I gotta be honest and direct with her. We're basically family, Lauren. Just tell her I'm doing my best to bring good news to the Nationals for her.
I will
Grab your
definitely tell
lightning
her. That's right. You're so weird, Matt, the one you chose. Maybe wading deeper into the offseason. Nate Eovaldi's next on this list, JP. He opted out of his player option. Chris Young says, we want you back. Put them together. What do you get?
He may return to Texas, but Lauren, because of the fact that there is, in that situation, a really good platform here, a proven postseason resume, I've got a different team in mind that I think has a better chance than even the Rangers at signing Nate Eovaldi right now, and that's the Atlanta Braves. I love the fit with the Atlanta Braves with Nate Eovaldi. Remember where the Braves are right now. Max Fried, free agent. Charlie Morton, free agent. Spencer Strider, coming off of surgery, you can't really expect him to go right back into the role that he's had for a long time. So for the Atlanta Braves, whether it's signing Eovaldi, trading for a Sonny Gray, also making a play on one of the other top free agent pitchers, I will be stunned if Alex Anthopoulos does not make a major play either via free agency or in trade to get an ace-level pitcher, or at the very least, a very strong number two. And I think Eovaldi is somewhere in between those two roles.
And most of the moves he makes works. One of the best big game pitchers in the land. Roki Sasaki is last. We keep hearing that general managers are traveling to Japan to watch him. When will he be posted? Is that coming? What's the timeline on this?
Still a lot of conversation right now, Lauren, between Sasaki's camp and the Chibalote Marines, his club in NPB. Kylie McDaniel of ESPN reported in recent days that he believes that Sasaki will be posted. But remember, the key element here is that because he's not yet old enough to be considered a foreign professional, his contract would be a minor league deal with an MLB team, likely in the range of $3 or $4 or $5 million. Not at all the mega dollar deal that we saw with Yamamoto a year ago. So that means that the share that would go back to the Marines is very, very small in relative terms.
So why would they do it if they don't have incentive?
Well, if they don't have financial incentive, Lauren, it would have much more to do with relationship, respect out of what Sasaki has achieved. And the final point I'll make on Sasaki is this. He is not a finished product in the way that Yamamoto was a year ago. There is still some growth to be had there. He's a little bit more of a prospect than he is an ace in full. Certainly the talent is undeniable, one of the best young pitchers in the world. But Lauren, I would describe Sasaki as a prospect who shows profound promise as opposed to someone who's ready to step in and win a Cy Young Award in year one as a major league.
Fascinating. Totally dependent on the team. JP Morosi, appreciate it. Happy Friday to you, Maddie.
While you were watching something else last night, there was some, I guess, some development, some movement in the Juan Soto free agency story, which we don't expect to have a conclusion anytime soon. But apparently the Mets plan on meeting with Juan Soto next week. Team hierarchy, the brass will be out there. I'm sure that these conversations all flow through Stevie Cohen because, you know, he's going to be doing the lifting here, of course. And so Juan Soto is going to tick off a meeting. And I know you were wondering when we discussed this morning if this is considered early in the process for Soto to be doing this.
Well, it's in the New York Post. It says, hey, look, power trip going to fly west. That's news to me. I thought he was coming to New York. I thought Soto was going to be here.
They're going to him.
They're going out to Boris Corp in Newport.
Right. Okay. What do you think? What's your takeaway from this? Is it early? Do you think is it early for this meeting to happen or not?
I hope they're getting the message that they have to move it along. They're going to hold up all the sport. If I'm a player, all right, if Matt Vasgersian is a free agent here at MLB Network, I got to know what you're getting. If I'm the next guy up, right? Because I can't negotiate until I know what the ceiling is. Where are we at? What's the market? He's setting this year's market. Every year it changes. Just like the qualifying offers continue to rise, so do the salaries. Soto's setting the market. So I'm going to give you a blind resume. This is for you, Matt.
Okay.
All right, 2 players. All right.
Here we go.
This is this last season, 2024. On the left is one guy, on the right is the other. All right? Leave it alone. We'll go to the next one. We'll go
And
to the
I
year
know who
before.
that is. Can I guess?
Yeah.
It's Alonso on the left.
No.
No.
44 is, can I guess?
Yes.
Santander.
Yes. All right. So we are, what, $500 million apart from these two guys?
I don't know if it's going to be that much, but I get what you're saying. I get what Santander is also a lot older, though.
He's 4 years older.
Significant.
Yes. So.
But he switch hits.
But if I'm him, I'm saying, okay, if the number's $600 million for Soto, sorry guys, but I can't be 100. He's not $500 million better than me. And if you look at the years he's putting together, I'm just saying that's how the market
I totally
is
feel
looked
you.
at. Let's look at 23 and 24 together.
All right, let me lock in on the financials.
He's hanging with the best in the business as a hitter, so to speak.
I like that you went back an additional year, too, because it still holds up.
And it holds up the year before that as well. So I'm just saying, as a baseball player, I'm sitting there going, okay, I get it. Shohei Ohtani's $700 million. He pitches and he hits. I'm not touching that. But I will argue that this guy's not $500 million better than me. That's what I'm saying. So my point back to your initial question is, I hope Soto moves the process because everybody's going to sit and wait and see where's the market at.
Well, and I get your point. It's really well taken, and I think, unfortunately, it is going to get held up.
Yeah, it is. It is.
One of the other names in this arena, I guess, and I don't think Teoscar Hernandez's money is going to be commensurate to Soto's.
Hold on 1 second, though. I got a question for you before we move on to the next. So what is the conversation going to be? You're the Mets. You fly out to sit down with him. What's the conversation? You either going to make an offer or you're going to tell him how great New York is? What's
I don't
the
think they start
conversation?
to sell that way. I think this is a get to know each other conversation. It's going to be a casual lunch, get to know the player, get to know the heartbeat. Player has a chance to get to know the potential boss. I don't think there's going to be anything that leads to an offer here. This is purely a social call, my guess.
Makes sense. I want to know. I want to look at you across the way. If I'm Steve Cohen, I want to talk to you. I want to see what I'm going to invest in the next 14 years.
Right.
You know?
And you hope that the guy walks in and you connect and you make eye contact and firm handshake and you have meaningful conversation.
And sometimes it doesn't happen.
Sometimes it doesn't happen. Sometimes one party or the other is drifting and checking his phone and walks in, smelling like he hasn't showered or whatever it might be that offends the other side. But I don't think that's the case here. Let's move on because Teoscar Hernandez is another name that's out there, and apparently there's a little bit of movement there as well with teams planning to meet with him. The Red Sox and Orioles have declared interest, and why wouldn't they? They're going to be in plenty of good company because he has a robust market ahead of him after a banner year helping lead the Dodgers to a World Series championship. So I think the Red Sox are a fascinating fit for him. Ballpark-wise, I'm not sure I could say the same thing for Camden Yards because of what they did in left field. If they lose Santander, they're going to kick the tires on everybody out there that can hit a home run. Here are the numbers for Teoscar. He got out of Seattle and took off. Everything was better out of that ballpark in the Pacific Northwest. And I think the guy on the right, his 2024 numbers, more indicative of what he'll do in the future than what he did in the repressed offensive environment of T-Mobile. What do you think?
I agree with that. I got one other thing I want to add to it. My only question mark. Was he a better product being in a better lineup?
Because of what was around him. Great question.
Are you going to do that in Boston? And in Baltimore, you'll have some people around you. But that ballpark does worry me, what they did in left field.
So I'm going to make a statement here because you think correctly that Juan Soto holds the key for all the player movement this offseason. I think the Red Sox are the most interesting team in terms of, from a team standpoint. They're the most fascinating watch. Are they going to behave like the big market team that they are for the first time in 4 or 5 years?
They have to.
They haven't for forever. And there are multiple needs there, man. They're about to lose one of their biggest offensive contributors. Mr. Canada is perhaps packed up and headed elsewhere. They have no pitching, bullpen's bad, starting rotation's banged up, yet they have some intriguing pieces. They got one of the best managers in the sport. If they spend some money, they could be back again. And I think the Red Sox are fascinating.
Well, I think they've got to also look at there's only so many dollars to be spent in whatever market you are, whether it's L.A. or whether it's in New England. The Celtics are owning that town right now. The Patriots are down, and you got a chance to rise the tide again with Red Sox fans and grabbing that extra dollar.
Yeah.
And this is the time to make a run. And the other thing that's happening with the Red Sox, the rest of the league is running away from you if you don't step in. You know, because you're looking at Toronto's not going to stop. The Yankees are not going to stop. Baltimore has found their stride. You can get left in the dust real quick unless you really say, hey, it's time for us to get in this race.
We're going to dive in deeper on the Red Sox next week because there was some chatter out there that maybe Casas would be moved. I don't know that that's the case.
ソト選手の契約金額で昼食をかける解説者の構図が面白すぎましたね。しかし、こうして見ると、サンタンダー選手との契約金額に5億ドルの差が出ると言われると、確かに不思議だなとは思います。そして、佐々木朗希選手の件も番組内で出ていましたが、1週間くらいで新情報が出そうですね。これからも注目していきましょう。それでは次回の動画でお会いしましょう。さようなら。